Okay, so Tuesday, 8th of July, 4 p.m. Central European Time. So this is the WP Odyssey Work Together session. So throughout this video, some people will join, some people won't. There'll be some Q&As, but this video is going to be about cPanel. So one of the members of the community has asked to have a walkthrough of cPanel. Hey, David, you okay? Good man. So yeah, I was just saying that one of the members of the community is asked to have a walkthrough of cPanel. So I thought instead of just doing a one-off video, I thought we'd use today's work together session to just go through it in a bit of detail and then use that as part of the course. People can use it going forward. So let me just share my screen. There we go. Okay, yeah, so I decided to do this as like a bit like a lesson, but obviously it'd be a bit more relaxed. I can see you there. Okay, so cPanel walkthrough. So this is the agenda of what we're going to do. So we're going to do what is cPanel, and we'll also touch on WHM as well, because obviously that, comes hand in hand with it. Some people might not experience much with WHM if they're just using their hosting, but we'll talk about WHM anyway, just in case you come across it. So we'll look at the cPanel dashboard. We'll talk about domains, files and backups, databases, email, metrics and security, and then we'll open up for Q&A if there is any questions. But yeah, I just want to try and explain really what is in cPanel and what I find useful, because there's a lot in there that is just useless. There's I don't think it's, you can it's a bit dated, you don't need it, but we'll cover it all anyway, just to go through it. So first of all, what is cPanel? So web-based control panel. So it's basically a website that you can log into and it's attached to your website or your hosting, which allows you to manage your website and your hosting through a browser. That's basically a summary of it. Like you will have, I think what hosting companies are doing now is they're trying to integrate as much of this as they possibly can into the hosting dashboard so that you don't have to get your hands dirty, roll your sleeves up and deal with cPanel. But I think it's really good practice if you're going to be a web developer that you understand cPanel, because it is like the international standard for managing your website. And it is generally what WordPress websites use. Not all the time, I'm not saying it has to be cPanel, but I think it's the most popular. So all-in-one tool, so handles files, emails, databases, and security from one place. Now, some of these features, like I said, you won't use, they're a bit dated, but a lot of it is really useful. And like I said, it's widely used. So it's standard on most shared hosting and it's easy to learn. And not just shared hosting, even if you take, sign up for a dedicated server or VPC or any form of hosting, chances are it'll probably come with cPanel. Throughout the last 15 years as I've been building websites, one of the setups I had, it was Nginx and it didn't have any user interface at all. So everything was just done with command line, which was a great learning experience, but having cPanel just makes things a lot easier for most people. So that's what cPanel is. We'll just quickly touch on what WHM is before we get stuck into, showing you around. So WHM is server management. So WHM is for hosting admins to manage servers and accounts. So basically, it's like the level above cPanel. You log into WHM to create cPanel accounts. Like I said, it creates cPanel account. Each website account gets its own cPanel. So a server admin goes into WHM. So for example, for our hosting and maintenance, we log into WHM. When we're adding a new client, we'll create a new account, and then that'll create a new cPanel instance just for that user. So WHM is just a way of managing the server as opposed to managing the actual account or the website. So yeah, the reason why this is about cPanel, because there's more chance you're going to be using this. So you use cPanel, day-to-day tasks are all done inside cPanel. Unless you decide to get into hosting and maintenance, then WHM becomes, the core part. So for me, I use a lot of WHM, but cPanel is what, you're going to need for managing WordPress websites daily. So cPanel dashboard. Now, login method. So access cPanels via direct link or hosting panel. I think there's going to be a lot of flipping back and forth here, just so, well, let me just do this first because I want to show you inside what WHM is. So this is WHM. This is like the level above cPanel. And what you can do in here is you can see all your accounts. You can manage all sorts of server related tasks. You can manage PHP. Everything you need to manage your hosting can be done in here. And it's pretty easy to use. It's quite daunting to start with because you see all of these options. But the most important thing that you need is the ability to create a new account. Okay, so you'd create a new account and we can do this now. So we click that. Then you'd put the domain in. So if your domain is google.com, you would just type in google.com here, no www, nothing like that. You just type in the domain. So for this, we'll just create a test website. So we'll put so we'll call it WP Odyssey demo.com. And then what happens, it'll create a username for that account, and then it'll allow you to generate a password. So just use the password generator. Don't worry, this is not a real account. We're just playing around with it. And then you put your admin account in here. So just put whatever it is. And then you can create packages, and those packages have like preset features enabled. For this, we'll just do the default one. You get some other options, like most of this you can leave blank because the server like higher level settings that are overriding most of these things. One of the most important ones is mail routing, because depending on how your mail is configured for your domain, so like dan@wpodyssey.com, you may be using something like Google Workspace or Office 365. So if you're using an external mail feature or service, you want to set this to remote so that it doesn't send the emails locally. Because what happens is by default, when you create an account on WHM for cPanel, when you send an email on that server, it automatically will think the mailbox is on the same server. So let's say I've got an account on here for WP Odyssey and I've got an account on here for WP Odyssey Demo. But WP Odyssey Demo is actually using Google Workspace or Office 365. If I send an email, and because I'm on the same server, it'll automatically deliver it locally. And you'll never get that email. The amount of times, this has happened to me is ridiculous. You're sending emails to a client, and it's because we haven't told it to not use the local server. So if it's local, you can leave it on that, and that means it'll just send it, in between, because if you're going to be managing mailboxes on here. If you're not at all, you can set it to remote, and then it just knows, don't bother trying to deliver it on this server. It's going to go and look for the mail settings to send it to the actual account. So then you just create the account, and then you'll see it just runs through it all, and then you've got a link to cPanel. So what we were talking about is how you actually access, the login methods, basically, of how you access cPanel. So by default, inside your host, so let's just log in. Let's say you're with, let me just refresh that. Whichever host you're with, generally what's going to happen is they'll have a button inside the host to go to cPanel. And that's probably the easiest way. Let's just wait for this to come through. And while that comes through. Now, obviously, we haven't got that account demo because it's just a demo. We haven't got that set up on this server. But let's say, for example, you've got whatever your domain is that you've created. You can access that account by doing /cPanel. And then you'll get redirected to this page. Just wait for it to finish. Come on. Let me just start that again. Gecko.media /cPanel. Okay, it's not redirecting, but you can enter it here. So click here to access. Okay, why is that down? That's weird. Let's try a different one just to make sure. So you go to list accounts, you can see an account. So let's just pick this one, for example. So when you go to cPanel, it just redirects to this page. And then what it'll do is it'll use this port. So some ports that you should be aware of are 2083. So 2083 is the port for cPanel. And then 2087 is the port for WHM. Now, these are just default ports, okay? So when you try and access your hosting, 2087, 2083 is for cPanel, and then there is 2093, is it? Or 97? Can't remember, for webmail. If you ever forget it, you can just literally type the words out, webmail. So 2096 lets you log into your webmail. So obviously from inside WHM, you can log into cPanel by clicking the little icon and it'll take you directly into cPanel. You don't have to log in because you've come from your server management software, WHM. Likewise, if you're inside your host, let me just get that two-factor authentication code. So you'd go to hosting, you'd pick on one of your accounts, so manage, and then somewhere inside here, whichever host you're with, it'll be something similar. You'll see something like this, cPanel. And the good thing about those links is you never have to use the username and password because you're already logging in from your verified account. Whereas if you do go to something like, the domain /cPanel, it's going to ask you to log in. So you're going to need to know what the username and password is. Okay. So that's how you log in. Sometimes, you will see some DNS records like cPanel dot. But in order for that to work, you have to have DNS records set up. Okay. So by default, cPanel allows you to access it just by using /cPanel, or you access it through your hosting. So that's how you get into it. Okay, so clean layout. We'll just show you the dashboard in a second. Search bar, sections, and quick shortcuts just makes it really easy to find what you're looking for. And the searches, if you can't find what it is you're looking for, just do the search and you'll instantly be seen. You can see what that item because it filters it out. We'll show you now. And then custom themes. So some hosts let you switch to a different look. I don't. I just leave it the same default one. So if we go to cPanel, so it doesn't matter which one we're in. So we'll go to this one for now. Like I said, on the left-hand side, you'll have some options. This tools one in cPanel just takes you back to the home page, which is here. Social media management. So this is like a third-party add-on. It's not something that I recommend you use. It's just something they're trying to upsell. SiteJet. We'll go into all these in a bit more detail, but again, not relevant. WordPress management can be useful. So we'll talk about that in a moment. And site quality monitoring, we'll go into that in a moment as well. So from the home page, so like I said, I click tools, takes you back to the home page. And like you see, everything is in sections. So we've got this one block here, which is email, and you can minimize it and close it. You've got files, which we go into each one of these in detail in a second, but you've got files, databases, domains, metrics, security, software, advanced, and preferences. And like I said, on the right-hand side, if you're looking for, I can't find the icon for, create a mailbox. So you just type in email accounts. So you can click email accounts, and then you're here where you can start creating email accounts. So yeah, the search is really powerful because, like I said, it can be tricky because all these different little icons when you're new to cPanel to feel like it's not overwhelming because there's so many options. But honestly, what we're trying to do now is just eliminate that fear and make you realize that a lot of these are just irrelevant. So that's just like a quick walk through the dashboard, and I'll show you each individual section now. So managing domains. We'll start with domains. Now, I don't use the DNS in cPanel because I use things like Cloudflare or our host DNS. But this is a really good place where you can add like subdomains, and I'll show you in a second now. So add-on domains. So host additional domains under one account. Now, for me, this is not about going, oh, I've got, you know, google.com. I'm going to add amazon.com in here. That's going to make it a complete mess. It can happen when, let's say you've got a .co.uk and a .com domain and you just want it all managed in one place. You can do that. But what I use the domains for mainly is, let's say I've got WPOdyssey.com as my main domain, which takes users to my website. And I might have hub.wpodyssey.com as a subdomain, which would take people to the hub. Then you could have app.wpodyssey, which would take people to, you know, whatever. And you can just use the subdomains to manage and control how that works inside cPanel. Subdomains, like we just said now, that's the main reason I use it for. So you can create sections like shop.yoursite.com or app, whatever, you know, whatever it is that you want. That's where you would manage that. And what happens is when in the file manager, which we'll have a look at in a second, it'll create a separate directory for that. So you can install a different website in the same account. Redirect, so you can point one domain to another. And DNS editor, so you can modify your DNS records like A record, MX record, and C names if needed. It's not my way of doing it, but you can if your name servers are pointed to here. So for this, let's close all these down and we'll go to domain so that we can see what is here. Now, the first thing under domains you'll see is the WordPress management software. Now, I'm not going to go into that now, even though it's under domains. It seems a bit weird why it's under domains. Some hosts have it under software, because for me, it is just a software that you can use. And we'll talk about that when we get to software, even though it's under domains. You've also got site publisher. So this is a way that cPanel allow you to just publish a website, okay? Again, for me, a total waste of time. I would never use this, but it's there. You've got SiteJet Builder. It's a similar thing. You can use it to create websites. It's just not something that I would ever use, but it is there. And for me, it's something that I would ignore. Social media management, exactly the same as what we talked about earlier. This looks like it's like an add-on or a sale thing that they're trying to get you to buy. Yeah, I wouldn't be using that or be interested in it. So what's important is domain. So this is where you can come in and you can see your domain. So we've got this one, for example, 3D Farmer. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to one that I know. So let's go to this one. So same thing again, in domains, you've got domains and you've got this one. So you can go in and manage and you can see, you know, there's no configuration options to manage there. It's just in there. But if I wanted to create like a subdomain, this is where I would do it. So I click add new domain and then I can type in, you know, the domain name. And then you can see underneath what it's doing is it's creating a new directory. So we're going to bounce around a little bit because inside each account, I'm just going to show you this. I'm going to jump to this to show you. You've got this file manager. And inside file manager, you'll have this public HTML. And that's, you know, if you've been building websites already, you'll know. So inside this one, you can see it's blank. But this is where you'd put the files for the website to appear on this domain. So when you go back to subdomains or a domain and you want to create a new one, so let's say app.handshop.com, you'll see it's going to create in the public HTML folder a separate directory which is specific for that website. So it won't affect the main website. It's just going to be neatly put away in a different directory. You can call this what you want. You can just call it app if you want. It doesn't make any difference, but whatever works for you, okay? So you can click submit. Now, before that works, you have to go to your DNS provider and you need to update your DNS records for the domain so that there's an A record for app dot going to this server, okay? And you can get the IP address if you need it. from the right-hand side here. So you'll see the shared IP address. So you'll need to make sure that app.yourdomain is pointing to this with an A record. And then when you go to the website, app. The server will be able to handle it. At the moment, we don't have that in place, so it's not going to work. But that's how you would do it. Okay. So that's how you'd manage domains, and you can add whatever domains you want. If you want to add like .co.uk or a .com, you can do that as well, and you can set up the redirects. Personally, I wouldn't use cPanel for that. I prefer using Cloudflare because all the redirects are handled before the traffic gets to the website. So Cloudflare are really good at doing that. But if you're not using Cloudflare yet, then you can do that. But my recommendation would be to, hold off on that and do it through Cloudflare. I really like Cloudflare because you can create a rule in Cloudflare where, let's say you've got the domain is google.com, but you've also got google.co.uk. Then you can set one simple rule in Cloudflare that will allow google.co.uk/page1 to automatically go to page 1 of google.com. Or if somebody tries to go to google.co.uk page 2, it will automatically go to google.com page 2. So instead of creating like each individual redirect for each page of your website, you can just set a wildcard and it knows exactly how to handle it and send it to the right place on the live website. So that's why I don't use that in there. But that's where you would definitely add these domains. So redirects, like I said, you can set redirects here. I don't use them in here. So obviously, talking about redirects, there's another way you could do redirects, and that's normally inside WordPress. You can install plugins to do it. You can use like SEO plugins that generally, are pretty good at handling it. But that's reliant on WordPress being in effect, okay? And that will add some rules to your htaccess file, whereas this is not reliant on WordPress. So if WordPress fails or it's been uninstalled, these redirects would still work because it's individual. It's not based on WordPress. So the type of redirects you can create, so you've got 301 and 302, okay? So what you would do is you would pick, all right, okay, I want, if somebody goes to app.danshop.com, you want them to go to whatever page you want. So let's say you want it to go to there. So it'll go back to the home page. And then you've got some different options like only redirect with www, redirect with or without www. So it depends what they put in the address. For something like app. You wouldn't be using www because it's using app instead. So you'd probably choose something like this, but you can choose this option. And then the wildcard redirect. Now, for me, historically, I've never found this to be as effective as using Cloudflare. I quite often get frustrated in here, so I don't generally use it, but it's important that you know it's there. And yeah, so that's redirects. That's one thing that you can do. But again, I would 100% be recommending that we do that with Cloudflare. Obviously, if after you watch this lesson, you're thinking, I don't even know how to use Cloudflare, then just let me know and we'll do something similar for Cloudflare so that you do have an understanding. So yeah, so that's redirects. Zone editor. So again, this is where you can, if this is where you're managing your DNS records, edit your records. So as you can see here, we've got, the domain here. These have been imported, so even though they're here, they're not ones that I'm managing in here. These are managed in Cloudflare. Let me just log into Cloudflare and show you quickly. Right. So if I go, like this is a domain I'm not actually using at the moment, so it's easier for Zoom. But when you go to DNS, you can go to records and you'll see these are the records that are actually in place. This is the place where I can manage my records. But what you will see is when you are in cPanel, you will be able to see all of these records. And these are the records that the server creates for you. So things like, like WHM, the forward, the before, like the prefix. But obviously we're not using that. This won't work because it's not, if we type that in there, you'll see it doesn't do anything. Even though cPanel has got it here, because we don't have it where we're managing our DNS, it won't work. So don't touch these because unless you're managing your domain inside cPanel, okay? So don't worry about that. So that's the zone editor. And then domains, dynamic DNS. Again, not something that I would worry about. So it says here, this feature lets you utilize a domain name system, DNS, hosted on the cPanel server to resolve a host name that exists on an external network with a dynamic IP. So this is where, let's say you haven't got a static IP address. This allows you to dynamically point the domain to different IP addresses. Again, I don't think you're going to need this. I've never needed it, but it's important that you know what it is. Okay, so that is domains. Now, managing files. So file manager, upload, edit, move, and delete website files. Edit config files, so make small changes to WP config.php or htaccess. Compress and extract zip, unzip files directly on the server. FTP accounts, so set up access for external tools like FileZilla, and then backups and restore. So, download full backups or partial backups for safety, and you can also restore them as well. So the file manager is a feature that I do use quite a lot. Now, even though, let's just minimize these so we're a bit more organized. So under file manager, like I don't generally go into cPanel to manage my website. I either use SSH, which I would class that as maybe more advanced, and I put that in the developer, level. But I do use SFTP. So I don't know if you've used SFTP or not, but it's a way that you can log in and gives you a direct access way to use File Manager. Now, when you go to File Manager, what you'll notice is you'll see, this is your home of your account, okay? I can't go higher than this to see what's in other accounts because I'm locked in here. But on a server level, each account that you add in WHM will have this. So it'll be home, account name, and then there'll be home, WP Odyssey, home, Gecko, so whatever it is. But we can only see what we've got access to, which is in here. And a lot of these folders, they'll mean nothing, okay? So cache, CP move, these are just things that the server needs. The things that I find useful are logs. So I can go in here and I can see logs. And if you sort by date, quite often you can see where the most recent problem is. So if you've got a problem on your website and you need to check the PHP logs, this is where you would come, you would order them in a certain way. So you'd want the most recent one. Because there's no website, there's not going to be anything relevant, but you'd have a PHP error log, this one. You could open it and then get some idea of what is causing the problem. So that's logs. I use that definitely. Mail, I do use mail for clients, and I'll talk about mail in a moment because I think it's a good added value way of getting more income every month from clients. So I would definitely be offering mail to clients, but I would not, let me just put that there, sorry. You don't need to go in here and change anything. Sometimes it can be useful if you've backed up or you've deleted emails by accident, you can restore them. So that's one thing you can do. Perl, you don't need to worry about those with WordPress. Public FTP, you don't need to worry about that. Public HTML, that is the most important one. So that's where you're going to go in and you're going to see where your WordPress files are, okay? We haven't installed WordPress on this account, but this is where they would be. Now, just to give you just a quick glance. So if we go to something like the Gecko account, we open that, and you can see when we go to File Manager, same thing again. You can go to Public HTML. Where is it? There it is. And you'll see this is where we've got our WordPress installation. And then you can see that we've got these two subdomains that have been added, which, give you an idea of how everything is organized. So the core website is inside here, and then you've got these subfolders, which are non-WordPress folders dedicated for, allocating different websites. So when I go into dev, for example, you can see this is where I've got a lot of development websites. Okay, so they're separate from the main Gecko website. Okay, so that's File Manager, really useful, but it's not what I use. I recommend that you use something like, let me just get something like this to show you. So this is SFTP. So this is a way that you can, connect to the server and see the public HTML folder. So for example, let me just, you can see I've got it gecko.media here. If I click on that, it's showing me exactly what is here. Okay. So I don't need to go in cPanel and log in. I can just use this FTP tool and log in through SFTP, where everything's securely, it's using security. So it allows me to log in using SSH. And then I've got access here. So then I can go to public HTML and I can see exactly the same things as I do. I don't generally use this as much now. I use SSH because then I can lock it down to an IP address. Same, even this is all locked down to an IP address, but this is File Manager, okay? And it's important that you familiarize yourself with that. So let's just go through these again. So File Manager, we talked about. Edit config files. So we said you can go in and edit, WP config if you need. Compress and extract. I think one thing that's really good about File Manager is that you can upload zip files really quickly and extract them. Sometimes FTP can be a bit slow. So it is good, that is one time that I actually do go in and upload, zip files to extract, especially if it's a big folder, like a backup, for example, of, another website that's a big clunky website. I would do that. FTP accounts. So by default, you would use the username and the password that you're given for the cPanel account to log into FTP. And that's like the master account. But one thing under files that you can do, which is cool, is you can create. Oh no, they're not there. Where's FTP? Oh, I've disabled it. Yeah, I've disabled it for security reasons. So under file, you will have FTP, and that will allow you to click on it and create a new user, and then you can allocate them a specific access to a specific directory. So say now you're working with a developer and you don't want to give them full access to all of this, which is what they would have. Let's say they only need access to a specific folder. Then when you create an FTP account, you can actually allocate it to a specific folder, and then they can't see things they shouldn't see. All right. So that's that. Let me just find where we are. So FTP accounts, and then backups and restores. So this one, yeah, definitely important. So again, you can either just go to find it or you click backups. Okay, so with backups, here you can quickly back up a database. So if I wanted to back up this database now and just get all the tables, then I can just click on it, click my desktop, and then it's saved it. Okay, so that's one way you can do it. You can take a full account backup here. These can take a long time because obviously it's just getting everything. But the ones I like to use here are home directory, the database, any forwarders that are relevant, and download email filters. So what's good about cPanel is if you say now you're moving to another host, another cPanel hosting, you can take the backup this way. So you click home directory. And again, same thing again. It just says, okay, where do you want to save this? I want to save on my desktop. You click save, and then it's going to you can see it's downloading that now. And then on the other side, when you go to the new host, you can restore that home directory just by clicking choose file, finding that home directory that you just downloaded, uploading it, and then it'll place that there. There's no configuring to do. It's already done it. Same thing applies with databases. So when you want to take a database, find the one that's relevant. Like this one's excessive. It's got, let's just go and find one that's, less cluttered. So let's go to this one. So if I go to backups, where's backups? Minimize that. So you've got backups and backups wizards. I'll show you the two now. So let's say, this is what you'd normally see because you've probably got one database. You just click on it, download that. When you restore at the other end, you can do it that way. Same with email forwarders. Let's say you've set up some forwarders, which we'll talk about in a moment. You can restore them this way. So let's say you've got hello at gecko.com going to info@gecko.com. You haven't got to go and configure that again. You can just literally restore it with the file that you've downloaded here. And that's, you know, a good way. So definitely useful, the backups. That's something that I do use and something you should be familiar with. You've also got the backup wizard. I don't generally use this, but it's just the way that it does it all for you. So you click backup, and then you can choose, you know, whether you want a full backup or you want partial backups, and then just click download. But for me, I prefer doing it using the backup tool. There's no right or wrong. It's just how I prefer. So that's the file section of cPanel. Okay, so managing databases. Now, I know we talk about this when we talk about, you know, setting up your first or installing your first WordPress website, but this, just for me to show you exactly what is possible in cPanel, I think it's worth just running through. So MySQL database is where you can create databases for WordPress and you can link users to it. So user privileges, so you assign the correct permission to avoid errors. So obviously with WordPress, you need to create a database, you need to create a user, and then you need to pair the two together so that the user has got the privileges to use that database. So you can do that in cPanel. You've then got phpMyAdmin. So this is like where you can browse and edit your database directly. As a beginner, it's probably not something that you can do that often, but as you become more comfortable, you know, there's things in there that you can do that are a lot quicker. You know, maybe you've been locked out of your website and you can't get in, you can go to the database and make some changes. So that's you know, a useful tool to have. And then you've got export and import. So let's just run through that quickly, the databases. So databases, this is where you go. So phpMyAdmin, we'll leave that for a second, but here you go, manage my database. So by default, it'll use the username of the account, and then you can just say, you know, whatever you want to call this database. So you probably wouldn't call it that, but I'm just going to do that for now. So just create the database. And then if you haven't got a user already, you can create a user and a password. If you've got a user already, you can select the user and then you can select the database as well. And then what you do then is you just click add, and then it asks you, you know, what privileges do you want to give this user? I've never been in a situation where, you know, you only give some of them because WordPress requires all. So you just click all privileges, make changes. And then what you've done now is you've created a database and you've assigned a user to that database so that you can, you know, go off and do what you need. Now, inside, the other tool that's available here is you've got phpMyAdmin. So in phpMyAdmin, like we just discussed, you can come in here and you can make alterations. So, you know, these are all the database tables that WordPress generate, but you've got eyes on them now. You can see exactly what's in here. And, you know, there's a course on its own to learn when it comes to how to use phpMyAdmin and all the features here and what each table actually does. And as you add new plugins and themes, you're going to find that more tables get added. You can see like there's rank math ones here. Like generally the most important one for a beginner is this WP options where, you know, you can override, you know, the admin username, you can override the site URL. Sometimes you can cause, you know, redirects which block your website and you need to fix it. So you can come in here and make these changes. But basically, yeah, everything you see in WordPress admin, all the options, they're all listed here. So you can come in here and you can make the change. So let's say you're locked out of the WordPress admin, you can come in here, make changes and get in. Like another one, for example, you know, your WP users, you know, you've got a user here, you've got the email address, the username, you know, if you're locked out because someone's changed the email address, you can just change it back to something else in here and then the password reset tool would work. So that's WP admin. You can as well export. So let's say you want to export this database, just make sure it's selected on the left-hand side. And then you can just click export and then it'll say quick export and then you've exported the database. So this is just another way for you to export the database. Likewise, you can import. So, you know, you'd go to the database. So let's say the new blank one that we've just created, where was it? This one. You can see I've clicked on it. It's empty. I could import to that. So I can go to choose file and then find that database. What's it called? It's this one, open, and then just click import and you'll see it's just going around and round and round. And it's going to import the database that we just exported back into this new database. Totally pointless. for this, but I just want to show you, this is how you would do it. And I think for you to be understanding that, having some familiarity and confidence to use phpMyAdmin is something that you're going to need, if you're going to be managing and building WordPress websites. So that's databases, important. Let's go to the next one, managing emails. Okay, so this one is an important one because with emails, let's just run through it first and I'll give you my take on emails. So in this section of cPanel, you can create mailboxes. That's the first thing. So you can create things like dan@wpodyssey.com, hello@wpodyssey.com. You get it, okay? Excuse me. You can create forwarders, so you can send copies of emails to another address. So it's important to understand when you do forwarders, it's not skipping where it's going. It'll go to the mailbox that it's intended to go to, but it'll also go to whatever you set it to. So it could be that you say, I want it to go to my Hotmail account or my Gmail account. It'll just send a copy of it on to wherever it is that you want. Autoresponders, so set up vacation or holiday confirmation replies. Now with this one, this is important because a lot of people, I'm talking about this with experience from clients. They use, let's say they use MacMail or they use Outlook, and before they go on holiday, they go to the settings in MacMail to send an auto reply that they're on holiday. And they do the same in Outlook or Office 365, whatever it is. Outlook, I mean, or Thunderbird, whatever it is. They set up an out of office reply and they go on holiday and they think, oh, cool, all my emails now, anyone that emails me is going to get a reply to say I'm on holiday. I don't need to worry about it. And then they turn their computer off. Now, because their computer's off, those auto reply responders won't actually work until they turn their computer on. So they come back from holiday, they turn their computer on, and yeah, all the emails that were sent for the 2-week holiday come in, and autoresponders go out saying, I'm on holiday, I'm on holiday. So not a good thing to do. But with autoresponders, because you're doing it inside the server level, it's actually doing it before it gets sent to your mail client like Outlook or mail. So definitely the way to do it. And we'll talk about that and show you in a second how to do that. And obviously we talked about webmail access. I'll just cover that, how you're going to do that. So if we switch back to here and we change this to email, which is at the top, you can see I can go to email accounts. And if I want to create an account, I just click create account. And let's put dan@3dfarmer. So it'll have the domain there already. If you've got multiple domains added into this account, you'll be able to pick which one. So that you might want the emails to be .com, whatever. And then you can set the password. Okay, so you'd copy that. And then you can create settings. Now, this is where I want to talk about emails. So I'd say for 8-9 years, I was giving mailboxes free to clients just for having hosting with me. Because at the time, everyone was using POP3. Okay, now it's important you understand with cPanel, you've got two options. You've got POP3 or you've got IMAP. Now, the way POP3 works is POP3, when you're adding a mail account onto any computer, you'll get the options of POP or IMAP. POP is when the email is downloaded onto the device and then is cleared off the server. You can set the time frame. So it could be like 1 week after it's been downloaded, it will delete off the server. So the reason, and that's what all my clients were using at the time. So the email's safe on the computer, but then it's deleted off the server, okay? And the reason why we did this is because we could give free mailboxes because the mailbox never built up. But the downside happened with this is, let's say the user's got a laptop and they've got a phone. They don't sync together. POP don't sync together. Both devices will download the email separately. And yeah, it caused a lot of problems really for a lot of people because they weren't syncing together. Things like Gmail, everything syncs. Let's say you get an email, you read it, you delete it. When you go and check your computer later on and check Gmail, that email is not there anymore because you've deleted it. Whereas with POP, it was still there. So you have to remember, did I deal with that one earlier? I can't remember. And then it was frustrating. So everyone started moving over to IMAP. And the problem with IMAP is IMAP's amazing because obviously everything syncs. So if you delete an email, it's deleted off every device that you're using. If you reply, it's showing that you've replied. So that's amazing. But the downside is you start storing a lot more emails, and then that starts stacking up server storage. And so what happened is I started to migrate to IMAP, and I was still giving people free mailboxes. But the downside became my server started to run out of storage because, you know, you got one customer's got 20 mailboxes, another customer's got no mailboxes, and they're paying the same price. That wasn't fair either. So I introduced a fee. Now, you know, I charge £5 per month per mailbox for 10 gig. So the reason for that slight detour is I'd come here and I'd go, right, it's 10 gigabytes and you're paying for that space then. So that's how I do it. And then what happens is when you create this, so let's just create this mailbox, you'll see it's got a quota. Now, when it gets to the full quota, no more emails can come in. They'll probably struggle to send emails as well. And then that client, I would speak to them and say, look, you know, you've run out of quota. Do you want me to upgrade it? And if they do, and they want another 10 gig, then that's another £5 a month. Okay. Now, you might think that's a bit expensive. I think it's quite fair. And it's not something that my customers have ever complained about. Yes, you can get a Google Workspace account for like £6, £7, £8, whatever it is a month, and you get 50 gig and you get use of all the tools as well. That's cool. I don't shy away from telling my clients about Google Workspace or Office 365, but it's not something that I am going to do for them. They're paying for me managing it and the responsibility of it. So, like, you know, just to give you some idea, let's have a look. Let me just open this. Sorry, I just want to. Right, mailboxes. Yeah, so nothing silly, but now, you know, from earning nothing every month from mailboxes, we've now got like over 200 mailboxes. So, you know, a £5 a month, that's, what's that? It's like 1,000. Yeah, it's like 1,000 a month, pounds every month coming in from mailboxes. So, you know, I don't know. It's up to you. You can charge for mailboxes if you want or not, but I think it's a, you know, good. It's definitely helped, you know, me, because obviously what we're trying to do is build recurring income every month, and you know, mailboxes. I think it's a good add-on. So that is how you create an account. Then you've got forwarders. So here you can add a forwarder, and then you can type in the email address. So let's say Dan at, so, you know, like I said, you've got the choice here. So we've only got one domain. So if somebody sends to Dan at, we can then choose to forward it to Dan at. There we go. Okay, so, or it could be, let's say, you run a business with, and there's 2 or 3 of you as owners, and you've got info at as a mailbox. Instead of having a mailbox for it, what you could do is you could have just a forwarder. So if somebody emails info at, instead of it going to one person, then it could go to like 3 different people. You could just set a forwarder to go to 3 different people. So you can use forwarders pretty effectively, you know, depending what you want, but you can, you know, that it is a good feature. And I think, you know, it's something that you need to be aware of, and you can manage it in here. So yeah, definitely a good feature. Email routing. So this one, like we talked about earlier, when you create the account, so quite often it'll be local or automatic. Even if it's set to automatic and you're on the same server as the user, it can go to the default mailbox, and that just means the user never gets it. So if your customer or you are using Google Workspace or Office 365, you want to set it to remote. If you're not and you're using the mail on cPanel, you can set it to local or automatic, and then you're good to go. So that's email routing. Autoresponders. Again, these are important. So autoresponders, you can click add an autoresponder, and then you can go through these. So it might be that you don't want, so let's say someone emails you 3 times in a day. Do you want them to have 3 autoresponders? If you leave this blank, that's what they'll get. But let's say you set it to 1. So like every hour, it won't send it. Or even like 24 hours, they won't get another one. Okay. So then you can set this to, what email address you're dealing it from. And then this is what the email will say when it's sent to somebody. So you can say Dan, WP. So you basically build out an email like you would in any other platform. Okay. So out of office, terrible. Yeah, I need to set this up for myself because I'm going away tomorrow morning. So I need to get this set up. If you want to use HTML, you can. So you can start doing, like this, or you can just write it in plain text. So, hey, I'm not going to write the whole thing, but that's where you would do it. You can set then when does it start. So let's say a client says to you, look, I'm going on holiday next Monday. Can you set an autoresponder for me? Then yeah, you just put it to custom. You put it to Monday and whatever time you want. So let's say from 6 a.m. 6 a.m. and it's going to finish on a specific date, right? They're going away for a week. So we don't want any emails until 6 a.m. on that date. And then you click create. Okay. But you can, populate this, play around with it. But, it's definitely something that, you need to be aware of. And it's a good tool, especially if you're managing clients' websites and emails. Default address. Now, this is something I want to touch on because by default, when you set up a cPanel account, you'll see now when you go to mailboxes, you can see it's got this default mail account. And what will happen is, let's say you've got Dan at and you've got hello at. If somebody emails info at, or somebody emails, Jeff at or Dave at, whatever, then there's no mailbox for those. There's no mailbox available for those emails to be delivered to. So what cPanel does by default is it basically catches them all in this default mailbox. And this was a mistake that I did early on. And again, you always learn from your mistakes. So I had, a load of customers who had this enabled. Nobody was checking that mailbox, and it was just full of emails. And what happens is, as your domain becomes more popular, and it becomes, let me just stop this a second. Yeah, as your domain becomes more popular, it starts to get a reputation, and then spammers start testing out different email addresses for your domain. So, the worst one to do is info at, because it's going to get spammed like anything. Accounts at, all the default ones is what spammers are going to use. And all those mailboxes will get sent and caught by that default mailbox. Okay. So what I suggest you do, the reason why I'm talking about this is you can actually, under default mail accounts, reject anything. So discard the email while using your server's SMTP. Okay. So no such person at this address. So you can just block it. So that's what I suggest you do. And it's a good feature to have if you're dealing with, so many emails coming in. So that's what the default mailing lists, honestly, it's dated. Don't even need to worry about it. There's tools out there that are a lot better, like MailChimp. Track delivery, this can be useful. Like this account hasn't got anything. So let's say, you've got a customer or you, and you're thinking, I sent that email, nobody's received it. Nobody's replied. You can just put the recipient's email address in here and it'll show you a report of, whether it's been accepted by their server or not. Or if somebody says to you, look, we sent you an email, definitely sent it, you haven't replied, then you can come here and check. And what you'll see then is where, what happened to that email. You can see if it's there or not. If it's not there, then you'd ask them to check, did you definitely send it to the right email address? Can you check the spelling? So that's one thing you can do. Or you can see maybe sometimes that it's been caught by spam. It'll tell you this was filtered by spam. So at least you know then what's happened to it. Okay. So that is the mailing list, track delivery, global email filters. These are handy, but I don't generally use them. So email filters are something that you would use for a specific mailbox. So for example, let's say you're getting spammed by someone and they keep sending you an email with a certain subject line. You can come in here and say, look, if an email has got, so create a new filter. So look, if the subject line contains, you idiot, I don't know, whatever, you can discard the message. And then before it gets to Mac Mail, or before it gets to your iPhone, or before it gets to Office 365, the server will have gone, yeah, he doesn't want that, so let's just get rid of it, okay? So this is where you can manage, emails that you don't want, basically. And it's not just ones that you don't want, actually. You can actually have redirect to a different email, fail with message, stop processing rules, deliver to a folder, pipe to a program. So there's a few options you can do there that can, save you some time, because I know you can do it on, there's like rules in Mac Mail, but obviously Mac Mail needs to be enabled for that to happen. It needs to be on. So this is where, it's doing it at a higher level, like a server level. So that is email filters. Global email filters are something that you can apply to all the mailboxes on the server. So let's say you've got 50 mailboxes and a certain email address is spamming you all the time, then you could, blanket, block it for everybody. All right, email deliverability. This is important. So if you're going to be using, your server to deliver emails, like this account in particular is not. It's using like Google Workspace. Bear me a second. It's using Google Workspace. So it's not, it's not a problem. But what you can do is you can click on Manage, and what it'll do is it'll give you the information that you need so that you can do DKIM verified, SPF records. And then what you do is you'd go to Cloudflare, and then you'd be able to create the records that you need to make sure that, everything's working fine. And for this, I would use something like Mail Tester. Mail Tester is an amazing tool. So this is where it gives you an email address. You then, you can come and write a new email. So let's put compose new email. So what you do is you take that email address, you put it here, and you go, hey, Dave. Okay. And then you just write an email as you normally would. How's things going? Hope to see you soon. Okay, whatever. So let's send that. And then give it a second. Then you click check your score. Okay. And then what it's going to do is that email has been received by them. And then it's going to give us a score of how well our email is authenticated. And this is all to prevent spam, because what happens is spam is, the worst thing that can happen is that someone hijacks your mailbox and starts using it to, send emails on your behalf. Like that's the worst thing. So this tool lets you, just basically guides you on what you need to do to fix things. So for example, look, the email, no problem. Spam Assassin likes me. So there's a couple of things. Look, DKIM is signed. So that's cool. So all those things that are here, I've already done. So, I basically given my domain the permission from my server to send the mail. So let's say somebody tries to send an email as me from a different server, it would fail this information because, where is it? Sorry. It would fail this information and it would probably get like -3, -4. And then when a server receives that email, it's going to go, oh, wait there. This has not been signed by the right server. We're not going to accept this email. It's going to go into the junk folder or get blocked totally. So yeah, so that's basically what that is. And I think, this is, if you're going to be using cPanel for email, you need to understand this. If you want to know more, just let me know. But yeah, so this basically just lets you sign your emails to give them, better deliverability. So that's what that one is. Address importer, I don't bother. I don't have my email addresses on there, so I wouldn't bother. Spam filters. Now, normally this server uses Spam Assassin, so I can, this is quite handy. This is where you can, configure your spam. So at the moment, we're not automatically deleting new spam at the moment because we were playing around with some settings. but you can set this to yes. So it'll automatically, anything that has got a spam score over the threshold. So you can see here, what have we got out for it? It's set to 5. So if an email comes in and the spam score threshold, if it's over that, so let's say, a normal email would have 0. Let's say it's got a spam score of 1, then it's going to get through. Spam score 2 is going to get through. Spam score 5, it's going to get flagged as spam. Okay. But if you enable this, it won't even go in the spam folder. The server would just go, you're not coming in, and it would just never get delivered. So the way we do it now is we leave that on, so it'll come into the spam folder, and then the spam folder gets cleared every 7 days. So anything over 7 days old gets cleared. So it's the user's responsibility to just check the spam folder, every now and then, just to see if there's something in there that's important. And if there is, they can mark it as important, and then it'll, gradually learn how, what's important and what's not important. So that's what that is. Really useful tool. And, you can set up filters. You can add whitelists. So you can whitelist certain emails. So let's say there's an email address that constantly gets back, not getting through, and it's by a certain domain. It's really important email that you need to get. Then you can whitelist it. You can blacklist domains that send you crap all the time, So this is where you would do all of that. And literally just click on one of these. You would add a whitelist, and then you just do, anything. You could, so they're wildcard at WP Odyssey.com. And then any emails that come from WP Odyssey.com, this domain then will, it won't care about the spam score. It's just going to let it in. Okay, so that's that. But where were we? Spam filters, encryption. You haven't got to worry about that. Box trapper, it's another spam. I don't use this. It's disabled. We use Spam Assassin. I don't 100% know what that is, to be honest. Calendar and contact configuration. I don't use cPanel for that. Same for this, same for this. Email disk usage. Again, this does give you some idea. Obviously, there's nothing in this account because it doesn't use the email. But you can clearly see, where all the emails are. So sometimes, your server might be low on disk space. You're thinking, how am I low on disk space? You come here and you'll see your junk folder is full. It's got like 10 gig of emails in there. So this is a quick way just to see as an overview. And you can do it by accounts as well. You can just see what, what you need to deal with, because, that's what we were finding. The junk folder was full all the time. So we set the rule that every 7 days it starts to clear out. So that is email. Lots to deal with in email. Bear with me a second. Yeah, okay. I know we're running over a little bit now, but that's fine. Let's just do it. Let's just get through it. Hopefully finding this useful. I know is a lot. Right, metrics and security. So metrics, see traffic, errors, resources, usage. SSL, TLS, install or check your site's HTTPS certificate. Just quickly on metrics, I don't use this. It's there. I don't use it. I want you to be aware of it, but there's far better tools out there that I can use. SSL, TLS, this is something that I do use, and I think you need to be aware of it, because either you're going to be using something like Auto SSL, which will automatically install an SSL certificate for you, or if you're running through Cloudflare, you can use one of their certificates and you can install that directly on your server through it. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. IP blocker, so block unwanted visitors by IP. Great that you can do that, but this is where Cloudflare is so much more powerful than doing this, because just think of it. What you've got, let's say now this is your server, yeah? And let's say someone's trying to access your server, okay? So a really, I was going to say mission, which is French, but really like nasty users coming to your server, right? Your server's got to deal with that request. It's got to go, oh, wait, what do we do with this one? Right, let's block him. That's using the server's resources, okay? And you multiply that over, 100 websites, 100 nasty email IP addresses coming all the time at your server. It's just going to start using the resources that you don't need to, okay? when you use something like Cloudflare, it's actually protecting your website. So it's actually on an outer level. And that outer level is, I don't even know if you can see me actually. That's why I'm not sure. Let's just stop sharing so you can see. Right. So that's your website. And then you've got these IP addresses coming in using the server resources because it's going, get away, get away. What you've got like a shield around it, which is Cloudflare. And Cloudflare is going, yeah, you're not coming in, you're not coming in, you're not coming in. And inside that bubble or cloud is your website just going, yeah, chilling. It's not having a problem because it's not having to deal with fighting off these different threats. Cloudflare is doing it for you and not putting your website under pressure or wasting your server resources. So that's why I don't use tools like that on cPanel. I use Cloudflare. All right, sorry, let me just get back into it so we can try and wrap this up as soon as possible. Okay, but it's there. Okay, that's the point. Directory privacy. This one is useful. So let's say you've got a website under development. You might want to make the public HTML folder private. So if someone's got to put a password in before they can see that website. Or let's say not necessarily the public HTML, but a directory inside might you want to password protect that. That's something that you can do. And then what happens is a little bubble will appear on the page before you see anything, and it'll ask for the username and the password. So if you want to share, a development website with a client, you would set this up, and then the client would only be able to see it if they put the username and password in. So it just means their website's not being, shown before they've agreed it or signed it off. ModSecurity, enable, disable basic firewall protection. Again, I don't use this. I use, we've got our own firewall on the server, and at our host, and we've got Cloudflare as well. So, I wouldn't use what's built into cPanel, but the tools are there because, it's just useful for them. So let me just show you quickly. So we were under metrics. There's not much to show you here. So look, you can see like basic stats. Okay. So you can click, one of these and you'll see, where people have come from. But again, something like Cloudflare or even Google Analytics will help you with this a lot better. Okay. So it's just showing you, it's just no use at all. This, for me, I don't think it's any use. Right, site quality monitoring. So this is like quite a new feature, and I think you only get like one license with it. So you get, I can put here, look, one monitored domain. So monitored domain, that one, and I'm going to put my email address and my business one, and I agree to receive notifications. So what that's going to do now is it's going to send me. You can only do it with one email address. Yes. Honestly, I don't use it. But if you've only got one website, it's quite handy because it gives you updates of how cPanel sees your website. The only problem I've got is that I'm getting notifications that my website is down when it's not down. So I don't know how accurate it is. Even though, as we're talking, I remember that my website wasn't loading earlier. So it's something I need to look into. But look, for me, it's been giving me a lot of false positives, so I'm not going to promote it to use it. But if you want to play around with it, feel free. Sign up. You'll get emails to tell you, page speed, little things like that. Errors. This can be useful. So this will show you like server logs. So it can show you, if something's going wrong with your website, you can just see your logs here. But like I showed you earlier, you can just go to your file manager. And then you can go to logs, and then you've got access to all the different logs you need, and you can see the ones that are, the most recent, and then like, oh look, PHP error logs here. So I can open that and then see what errors are going on, as opposed to using this errors. I don't use it, but it's good that you know. Bandwidth. So if you're restricted by bandwidth by your host, this will give you an indication of, what bandwidth you're using. And if you see, like, if you're under attack, so you can see we used a lot more bandwidth up to there and then it dropped. Okay. And I know exactly why that is, because we enabled Cloudflare on the server. So what was happening is the server, this website was using a lot more resources up until December. And then it dropped because Cloudflare was handling all of the crap, basically, which meant the servers, since we've done that, like, just to explain, you can add Cloudflare on a domain. That's not a problem. That's easy enough. This had Cloudflare on the domain at this point. What we did is we locked the whole server down to Cloudflare. So Cloudflare managed the server's traffic completely. And you can see it just dropped it completely down to there. So again, look, it looks pretty dated. I wouldn't use this. But sometimes it's handy to see if you're restricted by bandwidth, rules with your host to know what's going on. Raw access, you don't need that. AW stats, you don't need that. Analog stats, whatever. None of these I would use. I wouldn't even bother. Okay, so I'm not even going to explain them because I don't use them, and I've looked into them, and they're not something I would bother with. You're going to get your data from, analytics, Cloudflare, Google Search Console. You're going to get a lot more than you would from here. Security is what we talked about. So SSH access. So I manage SSH access on the server level. So you can't do it here, but maybe if you don't, you can come in here and you can, do certain things. But for me, you don't. And I think unless you're a developer, you're not going to need this. Okay. Maybe we'll go into this in a bit more detail into the development section of how to, develop your own themes. And that's when I use it. I don't use it unless I'm developing. IP blocker, like I said, don't bother, use Cloudflare, don't waste the server's resources using this. SSL TLS, so this is something that we definitely do. So this shows you what's going on. And then if you go to the status, this one here, this is where you can see it's an unknown certificate because it's coming from Cloudflare. But if you were using, if you weren't using Cloudflare and you were using like Auto SSL, this is where you can see which parts of your domain are protected by, trying to think of the word, by the SSL certificate. Okay, so obviously you can go to view certificate, and then you can see, look, we've got this certificate installed. I'm not going to show you the keys and stuff, but you can see all aspects of this domain. I've got this certificate, and it's a Cloudflare certificate. So what you would do is you would come over to Cloudflare and you'd go to the SSL TLS, and you would go to origin server. So you want to create a certificate for that. So what you would do is you would click create certificate, and then you say, look, I want a certificate for the whatever.com, so wildcard.com. So that'll cover www.danshop. It'll cover cPanel.whm. It's covering everything. Okay, even if you create now you create a subdomain in that account for app. It's in there. Okay, and you can have it 15 years. Then you click create. It'll generate the keys for you here, and then what you do is you basically come back to cPanel. Let me just close all these down. And then you would just paste them in here. You would select the domain, and then you'd paste the relevant fields that they've given you into here, and then you'd install the certificate, and then you're protected. That's how I do it. So it's handy to know that. Okay. So under security, so we've got SSL, API tokens. Don't worry. Hotlink protection. I wouldn't use cPanel's one. That's where you can prevent like hot linking. I would do that through WordPress because you're going to be using WordPress. Leech protection. No. Look at it. It's just dated. You don't need it. I just want to check one thing actually. Because yeah, leash protection is saying here it's not relevant unless you're managing private directory login. So it's pretty niche. You wouldn't need that. Okay, so that covers that. Okay, software and settings. So obviously, like I said at the start, I've put the WordPress Softalicious in this section, even though it's listed under domains, because it just makes more sense. Manage installations. You can update backups or remove apps. PHP selector, switch PHP version for compatibility. So just to show you under software, let's close that. So PHP pair, you don't need that. That is, yeah, so this is if you're using like certain PHP packages. If you're using WordPress, you're not going to need that or that. Site software, we'll come on to that in a second, but I'm going to refer it back to the Soft Delicious. Optimized website, you're not going to need that. I think it's quite, yeah, it's going to be dated. We're going to be using lots of other plugins and features how to optimize your website. Multi-PHP manager. So this is where you can upgrade your PHP version, okay? Now, on our hosting, we don't allow the PHP to be changed. It's fixed. We manage it in WHM. But let's say you're on version 7.4 or 8, which is now, deprecated. You can't use it anymore. You need to upgrade it. So you'll be able to do that here. So you can go, I want 8.2 now, apply. But as you can see, we've locked it on our server, so we don't allow cPanel users to change the PHP version. But the chances are, if you're using cPanel, you will be able to do that. So that is that. Let me just close that down as well. Close the spam test down. Yeah, you don't need that. That's a bit more advanced version of this. The one you need is probably that. And then just quickly, just to finish off, we'll talk about under domains this WordPress management tool. So what this is, it's not new, but it's sort of fairly new. It wasn't around. I don't know when it came around actually, but it's fairly new. So what this just manages, well, first of all, it lets you see the status of your website. So for this one, it's saying, look, critical security measurement, okay? SSL is through Cloudflare, and you can just see, what plugins are being used, what themes. Like, I don't use this, okay? So I'm not saying you shouldn't use it, but I don't, because I just do it myself. So that's one way you can manage your current WordPress websites, okay? And you can log in, you can see the details that you need. Look, they've got this hire a developer, this new thing now, which I don't know where that goes. But you can also install, one-click install. So you can go to install, and let's say now on, we want HTTPS. We didn't do that, do we? We haven't got another domain, so we can't do that. But let's say we wanted to install it on, site 2. You could give the site a name. We've covered this in the course already, and you just click install and it just installs WordPress. They call it one-click install. So you just click the button. Again, I don't use this that much. I just like doing it my way, which is the manual way. But, feel free to use this for manual install if you want. It's just not for me. But it's good that it's there. So like I said, some places call it Soft Delicious. This is called WordPress management. I think it's a different one doing the same thing. Just be careful with it, because what I found is when you use it, it actually sometimes, depending on the host, installs a load of rubbish with your website as well. And it'll try and sell you different plugins that it recommends use. I use this security, a bit like, when you used to go to PC World or whatever and buy a PC back in the day, you'd get it and it would be like full of antivirus software and like, oh, buy this, buy that, like just junk. And then, I would always format it completely and just reinstall Windows from scratch. And then you'd have none of these things popping up everywhere. And I feel like it's a bit like that with these one-click installs. And I have to say, the one that I've got on here, this WP Toolkit, doesn't add any extras. But the one on Bluehost, honestly, I had to stop using it because it was just adding too much rubbish. Right. I think we're almost there. There's a lot to cover really for yeah. Phew. Okay, so quick summary. So key takeaways: cPanels lets you manage your sites confidently. Domains, files, email security, all in one place. Yeah, but obviously you need to ask your host for some things. So some things you will just not have access to. So some issues still require, support. But this will give you a look. And I think it's recommended that you do get familiar with a lot of this. Just because, you're going to want to be less dependent on your host. And that's when you start learning, when you can start doing things on your own without going, oh, I got to phone the host again and wait like half an hour on hold. So, I know that's taken a lot longer than I thought it would. I thought it would take like 30, 40 minutes, but we've gone like an hour and 20 minutes. So yeah, I don't know if anyone's got any questions. If not, then obviously don't worry. I know David, you're still in there, but I don't know if you've got any questions. I'm happy to, when I post this, ask if anyone's got any questions, and then, do video replies or, yeah, just answer you in the comments sort of thing. But yeah, that's it really. I don't think, I'll get David a couple of minutes to see if he clicks on or not.
Yeah, the only thing that I would be interested in would be that Cloudflare that you were talking about.
Yeah, yeah,
Do a
100%.
video on that.
Yeah, I think I've covered it a bit in the course already. I can't remember where. Let me just check. But maybe not in the detail that it needs, because Cloudflare for me came about when so basically I was managing a customer's website, and it's embarrassing to say this, but we're all grown-ups and I'm honest, about everything. He got in touch with me and he said, look, we're going on this TV show. Can your server handle, TV level traffic? And I was like, of course it can. We got the best host. Don't worry about that. And that, we had a multiple servers at the time, and never had those servers been under any strain. And leading up to that, I knew about Cloudflare, but I wasn't using it. And so anyway, long story short, they went live on TV, and it was a bit like a Dragon's Den kind of thing. And they were live on TV pitching their business to get investment. And while they were talking about their business, they were getting a lot of traffic on their website, people interested in their products. The website we built, we're really happy with it. And basically the server couldn't handle the traffic. Like the site was down. Like there was so much traffic on the server. It was just, yeah, it couldn't handle it. We'd never seen anything like this. It was just spiking. Every time the traffic was coming on the site, we had to restart the server, and that would get rid of all the connections. But then as soon as it came back on, all the connections again, the server couldn't handle it. So they were live on TV. They had like their hour to shine, and I was on the phone with hosting going, oh, come on, we got to get this sorted. What can we do? And they suggested, right, the only thing you can do is you got to put it through Cloudflare now, because Cloudflare will like take the pressure off the server. And yeah, I put it instantly. I changed the name servers. We put it through Cloudflare, and everything worked. Like it just took control of everything. And that was for me the minute that I fell in love with Cloudflare. And so Cloudflare not only will help with, and look, just to be clarifying, Cloudflare's got free accounts and it's got paid plans. Okay. I've never paid them for a plan. I always use the free plans, and the free plans are amazing. So they are brilliant for performance, and they're brilliant for security as well. And for my host, who are like one of the biggest hosting companies in the UK, they don't sell hosting plans. The company I'm with don't sell. You can't go to them and go, I've got a website, I want to host it. They sell hosting to hosting companies. So for them to say to me, look, you need to put your server through Cloudflare now. So over the years, I've been putting my websites bit by bit through Cloudflare. I've never experienced anything like what happened that night. That was like one of the worst days of my life. Honestly, I felt like dying, having to deal with that customer. Luckily, just to finish the story off, he did message me afterwards saying like it shouldn't have happened, what happened, but it was a blessing in disguise, because if they'd had any more orders than they'd actually had for the second half of the show, they wouldn't have been able to handle those orders. So that made me feel a little bit better, but yeah, it shouldn't have happened. But yeah, so Cloudflare definitely need, and I think I have covered it in the course, but I'm trying to think if I can't remember if I did or not. Well, I did, but I'm just trying to think. Yeah, leveraging. There's a new lesson, leveraging content delivery network, CDN, and that is in performance optimization, number 6. So 0606 that is in. It's only 22 minutes, that video. So maybe go through that first and see what questions you've got, because, the questions that you've got for that are the sort of things that help me make version 2 even better. But Cloudflare, yeah, create a free account, add your domain, put your website in, and yeah, it'll start managing and taking control over the security. Like the security is the biggest challenge. Because I'm sure you must have visited websites and seen the Cloudflare page come up quite often. Most big websites, use Cloudflare. So yeah, watch that video first and just let me know what you think and if you've got any questions. But I'll be more than happy to do something like this when I get back from Wales. We can do like a Cloudflare walkthrough, set up a new account on there and get that all set up.
Yeah, I'll definitely let you know when I get to it.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, I think you got everything pretty good.
Yeah, there's quite a lot to uncover there. So hopefully somebody finds it useful. I'll post it in the community. I'll probably post it on YouTube as well, just to see if, it helps somebody else because it's not, directly WordPress related. But, somebody might find it useful. Hopefully, I think I covered everything. If not, we'll just do it again another time. But yeah. All right, David. Well, look, have a good evening or a good day. Sorry, I'm gonna
Yeah,
like sign off now. Like I said, I'll be messaging in the community. I'm available to answer questions. I just can't do lives for the next couple of days. And yeah, we'll catch up next week maybe.
yeah, for sure.
Cool, cool.
Have a good trip.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks very much. Catch you soon,
No
everyone.
problem.
Bye, bye, bye,
Yep.
bye.